Hi, you guys. Welcome back. My name is Carrie Penny. I am the Happy Crafty Homemaker. And today we're just going to have a low-key chitty chat because I want to run some stuff by you guys and I kind of want to have a conversation here. So I hope you guys have a beverage. It is later in the afternoon. It's almost 2 o'clock today. And I'm having some more coffee because I need it. Yeah, I wasn't going to stop and put on makeup for this. We're just low key. We're hanging out together, you guys. Plus, I've got too much to do trying to prepare for Thanksgiving. Mm. So this is totally a low-key conversation. This isn't anything groundbreaking or anything like that. But we're free flow thinking here because I do have a couple of things that I've noticed in our Yarny community, and not necessarily from the content creators, although yes, from the content creators as well. But I want to have a conversation and give my opinions or kind of like work my way through some of these. Sometimes it's better to talk to somebody than, just mulling in your head constantly 24/7 about these kinds of things. And I want your opinions. So leave a comment down below and give me your opinion. Even if you disagree with me, I would love to kind of get some more opinions on some of these things. So welcome aboard. If you are new to my channel, occasionally we do a little crafty chat and stuff. Most of my other content is a little bit more formatted. If you want to know more about projects and things like that, come back on Thursday or on Saturday. We will be talking about Project UFO on Saturday and show and tell what I'm working on Thursday. So I will definitely need a lot of coffee. So I'm finally mostly over my cold, but I still have a very sore throat, a lot of postnasal drip still going on. So warm beverage while talking is definitely necessary, and caffeine from the coffee is beneficial. So last week I posted a video about unboxing my new LK150 knitting machine. And I actually got a DM asking, is this something I need? And I get questions like this a lot. It's happened with other times where I've mentioned something that I bought for myself, like a spinning wheel or something, where people have asked, is this something I need? And my answer is generally, are you interested in this thing? Like, I've been going back and forth between the knitting machine and a loom and which to get next. And what am I really going to get the most bang for my buck out of? And, I've been watching a lot of weaving videos, a lot of machine knitting videos. And, I've spent a couple of years making this decision, and I decided to go ahead and get the knitting machine first because I have way more yarn that is store-bought yarn that would be great for quick projects than I have hand-spun yarn that I would want to weave. So I made a decision based on logic myself, where I am, what state of life I'm in right now, what I have time for, what do I really want. Like I have a ton of sweater quantities of things that I really want the sweater, but I don't have time to hand knit everything, but I can hand finish a lot of things. So, I made this decision based on me, my wants, what I really wanted, what I thought I was going to get the most use out of. And I see this come up a lot, like when an influencer or a content creator purchases something or is sharing something or is talking about something. And and this isn't just in the knitting community, this is kind of a larger thing. I've seen a couple of people doing videos about, consumerism in the craft community. If you're active on TikTok, I know, some of these niches are going banana pants, like influencers going out and buying or being gifted by companies and not disclosing, like the 120 pack of a hoo alcohol markers and 25 coloring books and specialty shelving and all this. Like, truthfully, if you enjoy coloring, you don't need all that. You don't need all that. And you I recommend generally for anything slowly purchasing and buying into a new craft or a new hobby, not going out and purchasing $1,000 worth of stuff. So um I'm the worst person to preach about consumerism when it comes to crafting, clearly. But to be fair, I also have conscientiously made decisions about what I have, what I own. Everything that's in my stash is stuff that I love, I have plans for, or I want to have a plan for. Like I'm in love with the yarn, I just haven't found the right project for it. Having moved 3 times in the last 12 years, probably not even that. 2 years here, 5 years in Charlotte, and 2 years at that house. So 10 years. Yeah, I I've gone through my stash significantly and touched every skein, touched every hank, reorganizing everything. I did a major reorganization last year and I did donate a couple of items that I just didn't think I was going to get around to in a reasonable time. But more or less, everything here is stuff that I love, want, or for some reason cannot let go of at this point. This is the crafting area is the only part of my life where I'm purchase big. I tend to be very food and crafts. Like those tend to be the things where most of my budget goes towards when it comes to free spend money. But you don't need this. As I've said in the stash shaming video and in my Yarny Icks video and how to build your stash wisely, I have been gifted a lot of things. I have been able to purchase things in large quantities that I love for 60% off or more. I've been here for a long time in this space. I have been crocheting since I was 5, which is now 37 years. I have been crocheting. I have also been knitting now for 19 years. So I've been here for a while. So my collection has grown, generally in huge blocks for one reason or another, but it has grown. And I do a lot of donation items. So I have part of my stash that's stuff for me, family, things like that. And then part of my stash is for donation items. But when it comes to things like making a large purchase, like a knitting machine, whether it be the Addy or an LK150 or a Brother or getting into spinning or getting into weaving or, even, sewing. Do you need a serger or just a sewing machine? Do you need just a basic sewing machine or do you need one that take a second and really reflect on how you want to do things or what you want to make. If your goal is to do a bunch of quilting and you're wanting to put together quilts, I recommend, something like the Singer Quilter's Confidence machine. And there's a Brother equivalency, but you can drop the feed dogs to do free motion quilting if you want to. You can, there's various stitches, minor embroidery stitches and things like that come already on those machines. And it'll do all your basic sewing. So if you want to, sew a shirt or something, or you want to be able to put buttons on using a machine, you can do all that stuff too. If you're wanting to get into garment construction, then you might want to consider a serger or a flat lock machine, but you really don't need a flat lock machine for a long time. Especially, if you're getting into knitwear and stuff, if you're growing as a seamstress or seamster, since we don't use sewer anymore because it looks like sewer. If you're getting into like knitwear and stuff, if you've been around the block, you know what you're looking for, you know what you're looking at. Having a serger is very handy. Having a serger that does a flat lock, brilliant. But is it something you need starting out? No. If you're interested in machine knitting, which is different than hand knitting, research it, look into it, see if it's something you're really interested in, and ask yourself why you're interested in machine knitting. For me, I do a lot of stuff that's stockinette. I love doing my ribbings and collars and things like that by hand. For sweaters, yes, I'll probably do a lot more hand sewing than I would prefer. While I know I can machine knit, I can also slip stitch with crochet to close a sweater. But I like the hand finishing part. I don't enjoy endless stockinette necessarily. So for me, getting the knitting machine was a good investment. It also gives me something new to play with and something that's a little bit faster to achieve certain goals that I have in the next couple of years. So This was a well thought out, methodical thing. I didn't just one day wake up and say, hey, I'm going to buy a knitting machine and jump right into this. So if you're watching a content creator and you're considering or potentially interested in a new craft or extending your craft or doing something new, ask yourself really why you want to do it. What are your goals with it? What do you hope to achieve by purchasing these things? Are these going to benefit you as a crafter? And if the answer is I'm not there yet, that's fine. That's wonderful. That gives you time to really look for sales and really look for a good deal to understand more what you're looking forward to. A lot of my crafting time, I will watch videos about things I don't do yet just to really understand what are my options and what am I really looking for. Um, so I did kind of want to address that because it's a comment and a question I see a lot, but I don't really see a lot of people giving good answers to it necessarily. And while I know my answer isn't necessarily what you're expecting, yes, everybody needs this, or no, nobody needs this. I think it's really across the board with crafting. It's really what's going to make what you're trying to accomplish easier. Not, is this something I need in my collection just to have it? Now, having said all that, I don't want to dissuade anybody either who is eager to start a new thing. I love spinning. I don't do a ton of it. I have 3 spinning wheels that do different things. They handle yarns differently, handle fibers differently. And I love all 3 of my spinning wheels. I don't spend enough time spinning, but life is lifing and things happen and life happens. And sometimes we decide to go a little bit crazy with plans and those have time constraints that we have to meet. But Project Christmas Blanket. Uh, it's something that brings me joy. I really enjoy doing it. I'm not an expert by any means or stretch of the imagination, but if you're wanting to learn how to spin, do what I did. I got a drop spindle, decided I really enjoyed that. Played with a couple of different fibers, got the hang of what drafting was and stuff. Although drop spindling is very different than machine spinning. Have a friend that if you've got a friend that spins, say, hey, do you mind if I practice on your wheel, get the hang of it, see if you like their wheel and maybe you'll decide, oh, I really like spinning, but I don't like the setup of this wheel. Maybe I want something else. And do that. We have community and we need to avail ourselves of that community sometimes. So I do have a friend that has a sock knitting machine, and eventually when I have more than 15 minutes to myself every day, I am going to ask her if I can borrow it for a month and see if I want to purchase one. Um, but I've done that with a lot of different things, or I've heavily researched and spent years understanding what these things do. Like when I bought the Addy, I knew really I was buying it to do donation hats and scarves. I wanted to be able to crank out a bunch of things that were basic very quickly. It does what I need it to do. And I did exactly what I wanted to do with it. It does exactly what I want it to do. In buying the flatbed knitting machine, I want to be able to make baby blankets and sweaters faster so I can get to the hand finishing part where I'm doing pretty borders or adding details and stuff like that instead of spending months and months and months doing just stockinette constantly. So do you ever need something like that? No, you don't need something like that. If you're interested in it, though, I do recommend, channels like Engineering Knits or Knitting Machine IMP, I think is the channel name. I'll leave them tagged down below. They've got some brilliant information out there as far as machines and what to expect and what you can do. Um, so yeah, there's that. I did want to kind of knock that one out because that kind of covers a lot of things that I see, especially when it comes to content creators and the idea that we need to compete with what content creators or influencers have. And like I said, this extends way outside of the Yarny community. I see a lot of people. I do haul videos, and I unashamedly do haul videos, not because I want to brag about what I have. Generally, I'm sharing with you guys either I found a really good sale, or what did I buy on a sale, or I have this big project like Project Christmas Blanket where I've purchased these items. You guys are my accountability buddies. So when I need to hold myself accountable, frequently I come to my channel and I share with you guys I need to be held accountable. Y'all see this. Y'all see what I'm saying. Y'all hear me. Hold me accountable. And also, when my videos show up, I end up also being like, oh, I need to. So, uh, I I handle these things a little bit differently, and I think about them just a little bit differently. I also frequently share things in order to test them or review them or give you my thoughts on them. But I by no means am the norm. And nor should I be the norm. I've always had a large stash. Always. The last 15 years, I've had a large stash. And, like I said, it wasn't even just, solely purchase power or anything else. I was gifted a lot of things. I have been donated a lot of items over the years. So, these things have just kind of come in to my stash. And it's wonderful. It's, as I've said in other videos, we're at the point it's kind of overwhelming, especially right now with the Project Christmas blanket stuff and the stuff for donation blankets for the next 2 years. I'm in a visual haze every time I come in here of like what I'm looking for and what I need to do. But um, we saw that in last week's video with the knitting machine. We need to understand, and I've always tried to be very transparent, that content creators, a lot of times we need content. We need ideas. We especially if you're in short form media only, seeing things like the TikToks constantly. The way to make money on TikTok is selling. You're basically acting as a marketing personnel for people or a salesperson for people and selling their products. And it is what it is. I mean, it costs time and money to produce videos that you want to make. So sometimes, yes, you do need to take partnerships or sell an item. I personally am in a fortunate position where this is 90% fun for me. I want it to be self-supporting to where, like if I'm buying something to review, I'm using the channel money to do that, not necessarily always using my out-of-pocket money. But even then, occasionally, if a brand says, "Hey, yeah, give me a fair review," I'll take a product deal. I'll do that, and I'm always transparent with you guys when I've been sent something for the purpose of review or to share here on the channel. But a lot of times, especially on the TikTok platform, people are not very transparent about that, and I'm seeing it more and more where the ad is hidden and it's not as transparent. So don't feel like everything you see me or anybody else have or using or anything else. Don't ever feel like I can't be good if I don't have or do XYZ. Which kind of starts rolling us into the next thing that I've seen a lot of recently. I've always preached, profed. I have always preached consistency is more important than right. And I've had a couple people get kind of testy about this, especially when it comes to knitting. Crocheters tend to be way more chill about this one. Knitters, on the other hand, get very anal retentive about it. Consistency is always going to be better than right, in my opinion. And you will never be able to change my opinion on this, with the exception of if your project doesn't turn out right. That's a whole different thing. There are 80 bajillion different ways that you can tension your yarn. You can hold your yarn for tensioning. I am not a fan of the wrap in a circle around your finger. I weave my yarn through my fingers. I do that for knitting and for crochet. I don't like tension rings because I don't think tension rings really help with tension. If you're using them to prevent a callus on your finger, that's a whole nother story. But I tension the way I tension. And is it right? No. I have always yarned over when it comes to crochet. I've never yarned, or always yarned under, not over. Um, Part of the reason is that's how I got gauge, and I just never really changed. It's just always been the way I do it. I've had it pointed out a couple of times. Why do you yarn over under? I guess that's how my grandmother taught me, or that was just an easier motion for me as I was coming up. But my stitches look right, and that's all I care about at the end of the day is my stitches are doing what I need my stitches to do. Um, like I said, knitters tend to be a little bit more about that one, but truthfully, I'm sure I do things knitting wrong. I mean, I'm not an expert. I don't have a certificate or a degree or have taken classes or anything else. I've never had my work judged beyond the state fair. I just try to get consistent stitches. I think sometimes we get bogged down with form over function. And there are very few times where I think that actually matters. For knitting, it does matter for things like, intarsia, you don't want holes in your work, or fair isle, you don't want floats this long that aren't captured. But even in that community, like avid fair isle artists, I mean, genuine artists that do this, there are different styles of fair isle. Some people will take a float and just catch it periodically, even though it's a long float. Or some people are like, you can't go more than 2 stitches. This isn't true fair isle. And I've seen that come up a lot with the knitting game show going on right now, the Great British Knit Off. What is true fair isle, and is fair isle just color work, or is color work, part of fair isle? Like what? And I've seen this, being bandied about in the knitting community, but I mean, truthfully, sometimes vernacular changes. As I've said with certain stitches, sometimes the name of certain stitches do change. And I've been around long enough where I've seen that happen. So as long as you don't have puckers, as long as your stitches are in even tension, as long as color dominance does matter. So once again, consistency. One yarn goes on the left always, one yarn goes on the right always. And you don't switch that, because you do have color dominance that happens within your work. So if you are always holding your background color in one hand and always holding your in the other, whatever, or make sure you're bringing one forward and one back, however you do your color work, whatever method you're using, be consistent across the entire piece, and you will have a consistent, beautiful piece. I just, like I said, you're never going to change. I can't think of a good reason why, if you're getting the desired look or the desired fabric or the desired texture or the desired density, why form matters in that way. It does matter, to get the form. Yes, you need to twist your yarn for intarsia so you don't get holes, but that's more the function of the piece would now change, because you would have holes in it all of a sudden, where you want a solid inset piece of color work in the middle of something. So I've seen a lot of people kind of harp on about this, you're doing it wrong, especially in the comments. And I know for me, I'm a content creator, so I get comments like that. And I open up the board to, email me, send me a message on Instagram, come join the Facebook group if you answer all the questions, come to the Ravelry group. So sometimes there are going to be times where I see things other people don't, because I am a content creator and I do put myself out there for this purpose. But I see it also in groups like on Facebook and Instagram and chat boards, where new people are being heavily discouraged because they think they're doing something good and they're getting the right thing. Like, this isn't like they're getting the wrong end piece, but they're constantly being told you're doing it wrong. You're holding your yarn wrong. You're holding your hook wrong. You're holding your needles wrong. You know, you can't do this. You can't do that. And it's more rules over enjoyment and draconian rule abiding behavior without thinking about it. Something I've always struggled with. I'm fine with following rules as long as I understand why. Why is that a rule? Why should I care about that? Why is that the thing? But when it comes to knitting and crocheting in particular, consistency, 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 consistency. Do your stitches the same way. Form your stitches the same way. If you always yarn under, always yarn under. If you always yarn over, always yarn over. The only exception for that would be amigurumi, where apparently yarning under makes your work a little bit tighter. So if you want to tighten up your stitches are too loose, yarn under instead of yarning over. But once again, if you're fine with your tension yarning over and your pieces don't have stuffing popping out, why change it? That's just one, you're just never going to be able to change my mind on that. And at this point, that's a set in stone opinion. The next thing, so I do have pictures for this because I originally intended this to be its own video, but I can't think of enough things to say to make this a stand apart video. I keep seeing, in particularly knitters, talking about the beigeification of yarn crafting. And I just have to say, who you following? So I'm going to pop up two images. One is the day I started trying to plan this as a solo video. And I may still do a solo video on this, but I need way more time to plan what I want to say. But the day I decided like I wanted to talk about this with you guys, I screenshotted the first like 4 or 5 pages from Ravelry for finished knitted objects and finished crochet objects. And these are just random projects. These aren't, for any one group or anything. I just went into finished projects, most recent, boom. And this is what that search yielded. So you'll notice while there are neutrals present, there are sad beige projects present. By and large, there is color here. And when I look at the people that I'm following, the people that I interact with on social media, the channels like, Jennifer over at Cinema Stitches, Ella at No Catchy Name, Wyoming Knits, Jenny Lee, all these people are constantly using colors. Kayla, the crazy sock lady, her socks are almost never beige. They're almost always a color of some sort. Obviously, I work in color for the most part, even though that's reading black on my camera, that is garnet. I work in a bunch of colors personally. A lot of my friends work in a bunch of colors. When I'm out buying yarn with friends, they're buying colors. They're using colors in their projects. So I think what we're seeing goes back to influencer culture, and this is going to sound probably kind of uppity of me, and I don't mean it to sound that way, but content creators share what they're doing. Influencers trying to sell you something, by and large. I think we have a blurred line in between. And what I find are people who are trying to sell you a product, whether it be a pattern or a yarn or a needle or a hook or whatever. They tend to try to fit into a mold of mass appeal. Also, people who sell their finished objects are trying to fit a mold of mass appeal. So outside of our community, they're trying to make things that appeal to people outside of our community. Content creators, by and large, do project shares, or they themselves are designers who are designing for within our community. So somebody like Elise Rose, she designs for crocheters. And so she's using a ton of color. Plus she does these cutest little amis, but beside the point. You know, she is designing for us and our community. So I think a lot of content creators, we focus in towards our own community, and we're talking, our voice is meant for our community as crafters, artists, makers. And we have a very different expectation than for the mass consumption desire. Somebody like Tony, she 100% is designing with us in mind, not outside of the yarn craft community. So, you know, like you see Tony making all these vibrant blankets, and even when she made like handbags and stuff, they've always been in these bright colors, and she still continues to work in colors. So, you know, I think we have like this visual dichotomy, and Instagram is stuck in the middle. So based on who you're following, if you're following content creators or designers or dyers versus people trying to market themselves outside of the yarny community, there's a huge divide as to what you're going to see. For me, I scroll down my Instagram stuff, and but if you can get over like the period costuming and stuff like that I follow, it's colorful palette after colorful palette after colorful palette. Like, I just about squeal with delight every time I see Gary from Urban Yarn post something, because I know it's going to be gorgeous and colorful, and his color texture combos just, I know he uses patterns, but I couldn't put together the stuff that he does. It's just so, you can squish it through the screen. I love what he makes. But it's stuff like that. Then we've got, you know, Kayla's socks, or, you know, I'm getting pictures of what Tony's sharing, or, you know, I watch a lot of dyers on Instagram and view them, and they're, you know, dyeing in color constantly. So I see from within our community tons of color usage, and then just random people that'll pop up on my feed. Most of the time they fit that mold of colorful, interesting, textural. I love architectural projects where there's just structure and design, and I don't always make those things because I can't always think that long on things, but I love those things. I love seeing those things. And that's what I interact with the most, are the things that are bringing color and texture and life into my crafty world. So what I'm seeing is very different. Now, I do follow knitters and crocheters, and I think this also makes a huge difference. I think a lot of crocheters tend to have a lot more whimsy in what they're making. They tend to be wanting to bring more interest into their lives. They're like me. They love texture. They love color. They love cutes. I still have it switched out from Halloween, but you know, we want cute, we want cuddly, we want textural, we want visual, we want impact. We want different. We want something we can't go to a store and find. And I think a lot of times knitters, especially very active ones, unfortunately, I think on social media, we see a lot of knitters who are trying to imitate what they can purchase somewhere else. They enjoy the making process, but they're trying to imitate what they could purchase. Now, I did see one creator here on YouTube, and if I can find her video, I will leave it down below. I disagree with her though. She said, you know, in periods of recession, we tend to see less color. I disagree. Carrie, hot take here. What we actually see in periods of depression, based on my visual landscape of, you know, looking at historical costuming, loving historical clothing, things like that. I'm just fascinated by it. I love it. I wish that my passion had been sewing, because I would have a wardrobe of not street clothes. I would have to have a whole new house, just 2 rooms filled with shelves for, you know, antebellum dresses and 50s dresses and rockabilly swing style thing. I would just have things I couldn't wear out to the grocery store, but had to make. But what I've seen in most periods isn't that we see a lack of color or desaturation. We see a streamlining and simplicity of the shapes, and shapes that will fit more than one size at a time, things that are adjustable, things that can be customized with buttons or tucks or snaps, things like that. And I think we also see a much larger instance of cover up wardrobes. So we're not seeing that this time. We are seeing far more sweatpants, t-shirts, and leggings when it comes to women, and a huge portion of our community are female. So I think with this time around, where we have financial instability and recession and depression going back and forth, we're seeing more of a simplification of wardrobes. And for some people, that does mean simplifying the colors. But I think for most of us, it's really meant simplifying the shapes. I'm seeing more people knitting and crocheting in the garment realm, more duplicates of the same thing. So that's why we're seeing like the rise of something like the ranunculus. It's a very simple lace design. It's very easy to adapt for the yarn that you already have in your stash. And I mean, if you scroll through if you reverse the order on Ravelry of who's finished a ranunculus sweater recently, going from the most recent finish to say like a month ago, and just look at the textures, the yarns, the colors being used, people adding sleeves, no sleeves, bracelet length. We're seeing lots of variations on this because it's an easy pattern for a novice to adapt. And it's a shape that fits multiple different body shapes. If you are curvaceous, you can get this nice, loose, flowy feel, but because the body is stockinette, you can bring in that waistline to accentuate your waistline a little bit if you want to. I've seen a couple of people adding a eyelet band further down and running a tie through it to make more of like a ranunculus dress tunic kind of deal. I think we're seeing more of that kind of thing come in. And while influencers are doing a lot of these things in neutrals, thinking that they're giving us a neutral palette to imagine what we would do, I think it fails. I think it fails heavily and hard because it makes people feel zapped. But I think because so many people with the ranunculus immediately went into it with color and texture, it's made patterns like that kick off real hard and become very popular. So I don't see this as a beigification necessarily of yarn crafts. I don't even see designers necessarily designing wholly in beiges. Um, if you are a colorful knitwear person or crochet person, you're already probably following designers that lean into your aesthetic. So, like if you really love complicated visual color work, you're probably already following somebody like Stephen West. You're probably on social media watching what Stephen B makes. You're probably as a crocheter, if you want, calm sophistication, you're probably already watching designers that design your aesthetic. So, depending on what your personal aesthetic is, you probably are seeing kind of like a bubble because of the way social media works. By the way, don't forget to leave a comment down below because the algorithm has really been hurting a lot of channels. Just because they're not getting interaction enough. So please like and comment, even if it's just, an emoji to say, hey, it shows the algorithm that you're interested in our content. So I'm trying to do better myself and go back, when I'm watching something on TV, posting a comment, either on my phone or something, but leave a comment down below. But the more you interact with content, whether it's on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, the more you interact with the things you enjoy, the more of those things you're going to see. So if you are already following people who have maybe a more simple, sophisticated style, like um, petite knits, if you're already following petite knits, you're probably going to see more of that quiet wealth aesthetic in your knitwear. Like you're probably seeing more people who are making maybe a navy and white top versus, somebody like me over here who's, like the sweaters I have on the hook right now. One is hot pink, one is strawberry pink. I have the yarn pulled together to do a neon shawl. Still need to do my basic shawl, but anyway, I have the yarn pulled together to do a bright blue cardigan. I have the yarn pulled together to do a purple sweater. I'm over here working in colors, but if you're more into that aesthetic, you're already following people who make more classic designs, classic pieces, or work in classic color combinations, you're probably not seeing what I'm working on. And right now with Project Christmas Blanket again, every single project I'm working on has more than one color in them, and I'm primarily basing them off of a color, not a neutral. So even though we have neutrals, like the black blanket was gray and bright green. The hexagon blanket was all brights. The dragonfly blanket is all saturated, feminine brights. The kaleidoscope blanket is all scrap work. The one for my oldest stepson is rust and tan and bright dark blue and light blue. So you're probably not seeing those people because you're already following people who have that more muted style and a more classic, timeless look to what it is that they're making. So when it comes to the beigification, I'm not seeing it. But my algorithm is full of color and texture and, old school Andra Mowry type things with the fades and everything else. Like that's what my feed is full of. So I understand why some people feel that way. I do think we are seeing a simplification in a lot of ways of style right now. And it's about time that we move back to a classics traditional aesthetic. But I don't think that it's overrunning our community like we think it is. And once again, following influencers versus content creators or influencers versus dyers and designers, it makes a difference. And if you want to interject some new interest into your feed, I highly recommend starting to follow more designers and dyers and people who are making things that are brighter, more interesting, saturated aesthetics. And it's not just who you're following for knitting and crochet stuff either. I've noticed since I started following the recycled movies person on Instagram, all of a sudden I'm getting historical knits. I haven't gotten historical knits in my feed since I did like a Jane Austen shawl. They just vanished off my feed. And now all of a sudden, since I was doing these recycled costumes and the Gilded Age has been one of the big recyclers of costumes, all of a sudden I'm getting historic knits again and knitwear designers that are working with historic patterns or making historic patterns. It's amazing. But just that one thing changed my algorithm completely for what I'm now seeing when it comes to that genre of stuff. So I've spent 45 minutes yakking, and I really didn't mean to talk to you guys this long, but I did. These are things I've been wanting to talk to you about, but I haven't really had a place to put them. Real quick, just channel update since we're here at the end. We'll have pet tax on Thursday, so don't worry. I haven't forgotten Banner and Pippin. They'll be here next video. They'll be here. Come back. I've got some fun things I'm working on. Come back. I got progress worth sharing for this 2 weeks. Yes. So I have been asked by a couple of people if I would be interested in doing a beginner crochet series. So I'm not sure when that's going to start. It may have to wait for the new year. But if you're one of the people who have stopped by and asked, would I be interested in like helping you learn how to crochet? I hear you. I hear you. I've got a couple friends in my personal life that watch my videos as well that want to learn how to crochet but aren't close enough for me to just sit down with a cup of coffee and teach them. So, yes, I will do a beginner series where we talk about doing your slip knot, chain stitches, single, half double, double, and how I mentally have always thought about these things and how I've always taught them. I have taught a number of people how to crochet. Normally, I do it one-on-one. So, this will be an interesting venture, but we will have at least 4 videos talking about just basic stitches. And once again, I will do a compilation of all of them at the end if you just want to watch one big long video about me talking about basic stitches. But that will be coming up either in December or January. I just haven't figured out the schedule. Like I said, I'm not even prepared for Thanksgiving next week. So anyway, this week we have show and tell on Thursday, Project UFO conversation on Saturday morning. So I hope you guys will come back. If you were new here, this was your first video with me, hit that subscribe button and maybe the little notification bell. I do know that I'm falling off a lot of people's notifications. I can't control it. I'm really sorry. I keep falling off my own. I've been unsubscribed to my own channel at least 3 times in the last 18 months. I really wish I knew what was causing it. I don't know, but all you can do is interact with this video by liking and commenting. And I know that tends to help. So I love you guys. Please comment down below what you think about what I said. What are you seeing? What is your experience with these things? I want to know genuinely. When I come to you with these things, I'm coming to you because I want to hear your feedback. So even if you leave me 6 paragraphs, I will read it and I will reply to you. It may take me a day or 2, but I will reply. And I would love to hear your opinion, especially on the beigification thing, because I think being a knitter and crocheter and seeing both so often, I understand why knitters think everything's becoming beige, but I'm not seeing that from the crochet community. But the people I follow that knit tend to work with a lot of color. So I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe it's just my algorithm. Maybe my algorithm's weird, but I did have the Ravelry pictures. So anyway, I'm going to go. I've got to go finish making dinner. I love you guys. I hope you are having a wonderful, fantastic day. Please take care of yourselves, especially with the temperatures going up and down. Take your zinc. Be well. I love you guys. Bye.